Your methods are outdated and inefficient, Gregory, Damien Cross declared, his gaze fixed somewhere past me, likely on the gleaming frame holding his prestigious MBA diploma. We need modern approaches to align with our strategic imperatives. My name is Gregory Miller. I'm 58 years old, and until about 10 minutes ago, I was the IT infrastructure lead at Cedar Valley Regional Hospital here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Effectively, the senior sysadmin. 15 years dedicated to maintaining the digital heartbeat of this 300-bed hospital, meticulously keeping everything online and secure. All of that rendered irrelevant in a brisk, impersonal 20-minute meeting. Damien Cross sat behind the large oak desk that used to belong to Dr. Lawrence Bell, looking every bit the 42-year-old executive armed with impressive credentials, but utterly lacking in practical medical or operational background. He'd only been our new operations director for 4 months, yet he was already swinging his metaphorical axe with alarming enthusiasm. His chosen consultant, Kyle Vance from Apex Integrated Systems, stood near the window, his thumbs a blur across his smartphone screen. He was probably updating his LinkedIn profile with his latest successful project intervention before my termination was even fully processed. The consulting team from Apex will be overseeing the transition to a new cloud-based architecture, Damien continued, his tones smooth and rehearsed. We've prepared a standard severance package for you, 2 months' salary, and the usual non-disclosure agreement. I gave a slow nod, the physical weight of my silver badge suddenly feeling heavy against my chest, a tangible reminder of the years I'd poured into this place. 15 years. In all that time, not a single critical system had crashed on my watch. Not during the ransomware scare that crippled hospitals nationwide back in 2018. Not during the widespread power grid failure of 2020 that tested our backups to their limits. Not even during the painful budget cuts when I lost half my experienced staff and kept everything running smoothly by pulling relentless 80-hour weeks, fueled by coffee and sheer determination. Our security team will escort you to collect your personal items now, Miller, Damien said coolly, sliding a thin folder across the polished surface of the desk towards me. His use of my last name felt like a deliberate distancing tactic. We'll require your access card and all hospital-issued credentials immediately. My fingers fumbled slightly as I unclipped the badge from my shirt pocket, the plastic warm from my body heat. I placed it carefully on the desk beside the folder. The master passwords, all access protocols, everything is securely stored on the encrypted network drive, I stated, keeping my voice steady. It's all meticulously documented, just as procedure dictates. Excellent. A brief, tight smile finally touched Damien's lips. It didn't reach his eyes. I appreciate your cooperation in this necessary transition, Gregory. He switched back to my first name, perhaps attempting a semblance of professional courtesy. Change, while sometimes difficult, is essential for progress. My gaze shifted to Kyle Vance, maybe 32 years old, already looking like he was mentally measuring the office for new furniture, perhaps envisioning where his own framed certificates might hang. He hadn't asked me a single substantive question about our complex, interwoven systems during his entire 3-week evaluation period. Not one. Is there anything else, Miller? Damien asked, his tone indicating the meeting was definitively over. A flood of unspoken warnings rushed through my mind. I should have explicitly detailed the custom patches I developed over years to bridge gaps between incompatible vendor software. I should have emphasized the critical, delicate integration between the aging but reliable legacy pharmacy system and the main electronic patient records database. I should have forcefully warned him about the highly specialized, multi-tiered backup protocols designed specifically for our unique infrastructure needs. Instead, a wave of weary resignation washed over me. What difference would it make now? No, I said quietly, the word feeling inadequate. Nothing else. I walked out of the office, the security guard trailing a few steps behind me like a silent shadow. I walked past the nurse's station, past faces I recognized, nurses who'd called me in the dead of night, their voices tight with panic when a monitor flickered or a system glitched unexpectedly. I walked past the surgical scheduling desk, a place where I'd personally spent an entire weekend painstakingly rebuilding a corrupted database, ensuring no procedures were delayed. I walked past 15 years of quiet, unwavering, reliable service, now dismissed as obsolete. Out in the employee parking lot, the Iowa sun felt unusually bright. I slid into the familiar seat of my sturdy pickup truck. I placed the small cardboard box containing a few family photos, my favorite coffee mug, and a couple of technical manuals onto the passenger seat. It felt pathetically small, representing 15 years of my life. I started the engine and drove away from Cedar Valley Regional Hospital without a single glance in the rearview mirror. They didn't want my deep-seated expertise. They simply wanted my absence to make way for their shiny new vision. It would be exactly 1 week, almost to the hour, before they began to truly comprehend the magnitude of what they had just discarded. I started my career at CVRH just after my 43rd birthday, not my 50th. Making the transition from the fast-paced private tech sector to the unique demands of healthcare wasn't initially part of my grand life plan. But the national economy had taken a sharp downturn back then, and Catherine's escalating cancer treatments were proving incredibly expensive. CVRH offered stability, good benefits, and crucially, decent health insurance coverage. So, I took the leap, accepting the position and diving headfirst into learning the complex world of medical information systems from the ground up. Those initial years were challenging but rewarding. I worked closely alongside Dr. Lawrence Bell, the former operations director. Dr. Bell was old school in the best way. He understood what truly mattered in a hospital environment. Fancy dashboards and flashy interfaces don't save lives, Gregory. He used to tell me, his voice gruff but kind. Reliability does. Rock solid, dependable reliability. So, guided by that principle, I built systems focused on unwavering reliability, layers of redundant backups, robust fail-safes for every critical process, and clear manual override procedures for when technology inevitably hiccuped. The systems weren't always the prettiest or the most cutting-edge, perhaps, but they were absolutely bulletproof. I skipped planned vacations without complaint when the new electronic prescribing platform required a complex, time-sensitive upgrade. I distinctly remember missing my daughter Megan's college graduation ceremony because I had to personally manage an emergency server migration that weekend. The timing was unavoidable. The hospital's operations depended on it. Catherine, my wife, always understood the demands. "You're keeping people safe, Greg," she'd say softly, her hand resting on my arm, even as her own strength waned. "You're helping the doctors and nurses do their jobs." That was before the cancer finally took her from me, 8 long years ago now. After she passed, the hospital, in many ways, became my primary focus, my life. The dedicated staff, the doctors, nurses, technicians, they became a sort of surrogate family. There was Sharon Mills, the charge nurse and the bustlinger, who always seemed to know exactly when a strong cup of coffee was needed during those late-night system updates. And Dr. Marcus Cole, the brilliant cardiovascular surgeon, who'd occasionally stop by my office with a box of donuts the morning after I'd spent hours resolving a critical glitch in the surgical imaging system. Even Louise, one of the overnight janitors, would sometimes keep me company with quiet conversation during long, lonely maintenance windows in the server room. Everything started to shift when Dr. Bell finally retired last winter after decades of dedicated service. The hospital board, seeking a more business-oriented approach, brought in Damian Cross from some large, faceless hospital network headquartered back in Chicago. One of the very first things Damian did upon arrival was schedule a comprehensive operational efficiency audit. That was the first red flag for me. I noticed the subtle, and then not so subtle, cracks appearing almost immediately. Damian rarely attended the mandatory IT security briefings. He never once asked probing questions about our specific system architecture or the reasoning behind certain configurations. During departmental meetings, he just nodded impatiently, eyes frequently flicking down to check his expensive watch, clearly more interested in sticking to his schedule than understanding the complexities we managed. Then came Kyle Vance and his slick team of consultants from Apex Integrated Systems, all clad in matching corporate polo shirts, armed with the latest industry buzzwords: digital transformation, seamless cloud migration, legacy system modernization. They spoke a language designed to impress executives, not address technical realities. I tried, patiently at first, to explain the intricacies of our specialized setup. Look, the main patient record system here interfaces directly with 17 different platforms. I attempted to explain during one of their cursory overview sessions. Some are standard commercial software, yes, but several are custom-built applications developed in-house over years to meet very specific clinical needs. We've had to create highly specialized middleware and custom APIs to ensure seamless data flow and integrity, especially with the older research equipment. We've successfully handled dozens of complex hospital migrations, Mr. Miller. Kyle interrupted smoothly, flashing a practiced, confident smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Rest assured, it's all pretty standard stuff in our experience. Nothing Apex can't handle. Standard stuff. The phrase grated on me. There was nothing standard about the system I had painstakingly built and maintained for 15 years. The warning signs continued to flash with increasing intensity, like faulty neon lights. Large, colorful charts mapping out our hospital's IT systems began appearing on the conference room walls, supposedly representing the current state. But even a quick glance revealed they were dangerously incomplete, missing entire sections of critical infrastructure, overlooking vital interdependencies I knew existed. My pointed questions about securing critical data connections during the proposed transition were met with vague assurances or simply went unanswered altogether. My detailed emails outlining potential security vulnerabilities and necessary mitigation protocols received polite, automated-sounding thank you replies, but never any follow-up questions or requests for clarification. Then, one Friday afternoon, I walked back to my office after a meeting and found two unfamiliar contractors inside, holding measuring tapes. "Oh, just planning for some upcoming renovations," one of the contractors mumbled, quickly avoiding my gaze. Standard office refresh. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I went home that evening and, for the first time in over a decade, updated my professional resume. Some deep-seated instinct, honed by years of troubleshooting and anticipating problems, told me to prepare for the worst. Yet, a part of me, the loyal part that had dedicated so much to CVRH, simply couldn't believe they would be foolish enough to remove the one person who truly understood how every single intricate piece of their digital nervous system fit together. I was profoundly wrong. They didn't just want a new, modern IT system. They wanted a whole new narrative for the hospital's future. And that narrative apparently had no place for the old guy in the IT department who kept reminding them, perhaps too persistently, of the inherent risks and complexities involved in their ambitious, fast-tracked plans. The full, chilling truth of their recklessness didn't truly hit me until 2 days after the firing. I was sitting alone in my quiet living room, surrounded by scattered classified job listings from online boards and the remnants of half-eaten Chinese takeout containers. My personal cell phone hadn't stopped buzzing intermittently since I'd walked out of CVRH. Messages were trickling in from former colleagues, people still inside the hospital network. "Hey Gregory, quick question. What's the exact backup restore process for the surgical scheduling database again? Can't find the latest procedure doc," texted Alan, one of the junior techs I'd trained. "Greg, where did you store the final configuration files for the main pharmacy interface controller? Denise is asking. The connection seems unstable." Pinged another message from the database admin team. I read each message, a growing sense of unease settling in my gut. But I didn't answer any of them. I couldn't. The termination agreement I'd signed was crystal clear. Absolutely no unauthorized assistance or communication regarding CVRH systems or operations. My hands were legally tied. The realization that washed over me wasn't smug satisfaction or a sense of vindication. It was a cold, heavy certainty that felt like lead in my veins. They had absolutely no idea what they had truly done. They had no concept of the intricate, fragile ecosystem they were now blindly attempting to dismantle and replace. Our hospital's IT systems weren't just off-the-shelf software packages you could simply swap out like changing a burned-out light bulb. They were more like living, breathing, interconnected organisms, a complex web I had carefully cultivated, nurtured, and protected for 15 painstaking years. There were countless custom-built interfaces bridging the gaps between incompatible vendor platforms, essential workarounds developed to meet stringent regulatory compliance requirements, and critical manual processes put in place precisely because automated solutions had proven unreliable or unsafe in specific clinical contexts. I had documented everything, of course. I prided myself on my thoroughness. Hundreds upon hundreds of pages detailing technical specifications, precise configuration notes, step-by-step emergency procedures, all meticulously organized and filed properly on the hospital's secure internal drive, exactly where they should be. But documentation, no matter how detailed, couldn't possibly replace deep, intuitive understanding. It couldn't replicate 15 years of accumulated institutional knowledge, the kind gained only through countless late nights troubleshooting obscure errors and navigating unforeseen crises. Documentation couldn't replace me. My phone rang again, jarring me out of my thoughts. The caller ID displayed Damien Cross's office number. I stared at it for a moment, then deliberately silenced the call, letting it roll over to voicemail. A minute later, the voicemail notification popped up. I listened, my expression neutral. "But Gregory, Damien Cross here." His voice sounded slightly strained, losing some of its usual smooth confidence. "Listen, we seem to be encountering some minor integration issues with the pharmacy dispensing system." A pause. "Just a quick question I thought you might be able to shed some light on." Another pause. "Give me a call back when you get a moment." I deleted the message without hesitation and poured myself another cup of strong black coffee. 3 more calls came through from Damien's number over the course of that day. Each subsequent voicemail message sounded increasingly strained, the carefully constructed professional facade beginning to crack, revealing the rising urgency underneath. I deleted them all, methodically, one by one. That evening, as I was trying to focus on refining my resume, my personal phone rang again. This time, it was Dr. Marcus Cole, calling from his personal cell, not his hospital line. "Gregory? It's Marcus Cole. Did you happen to hear what went down at CVRH today?" he asked, his voice tight with concern. My stomach clenched. "No, Marcus. What happened?" "The emergency department. They couldn't access critical patient history data for a major trauma case that came in this afternoon." His voice was low, serious. "They had to resort to calling previous hospitals directly, trying to track down records manually. It took them nearly 40 agonizing minutes just to confirm the patient's known medication allergies." I closed my eyes, picturing the chaotic scene in the ER, the precious minutes ticking by. This was exactly the kind of scenario I had worked tirelessly for 15 years to prevent. "Fortunately, no one was seriously harmed, Gregory. Not this time," he continued, letting out a heavy sigh. "But Damien's new Apex team, they're clearly struggling, way out of their depth. There's already serious talk circulating about potentially rolling back certain departments to manual paper records temporarily just to maintain basic operations." Paper records. In this day and age. The thought was horrifying. A strange, unsettling stillness settled over me then. It wasn't the bitter taste of revenge, nor the smug satisfaction of being proven right. It was simply a stark, chilling clarity. For 15 long years, I had been the invisible man, the behind-the-scenes tech guy. My contributions were only noticeable when something went wrong, which, thanks to my constant vigilance, rarely happened. My countless sleepless nights spent monitoring systems, my missed family events sacrificed for emergency updates, my relentless focus on stability and security, all of it had meant that the hospital could run smoothly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It meant that doctors like Marcus Cole could access the information they needed instantly to treat critically ill patients. It meant that nurses like Sharon Mills could administer the correct medications safely and efficiently. It meant that lives could be, and were, saved. All that had ever mattered to me was keeping that vital system alive and healthy. And now, under new, ill-informed management, that system was undeniably failing. I'm truly sorry to hear that, Marcus, I said carefully, choosing my words with precision. Damien has apparently been asking around if anyone has your personal contact information, Dr. Cole added, his voice dropping slightly. Word is, the Apex consultant team seems completely overwhelmed by the complexity they've uncovered. My mind instantly flashed to the specifics. The dedicated, specialized backup server hidden discreetly behind an unmarked maintenance panel in the main server room, a final failsafe known only to me and documented separately. I thought about the supplementary paper documentation stored securely in the fireproof safe within my old office, containing nuances the digital records might miss. I thought about the complex chain of security authentication certificates that would begin automatically expiring in exactly 12 days if they weren't manually renewed using a specific protocol I had designed. Well, I said, my voice deliberately neutral, betraying none of the turmoil inside. I sincerely wish them the best of luck sorting it all out. After hanging up with Dr. Cole, a heavy silence filled my living room. I walked over to my cluttered desk and pulled out a crisp business card I'd kept tucked away for several years. It belonged to Victoria Hayes, the Chief Information Officer at Prairie Creek Medical Group, CVRH's main regional competitor. Victoria was sharp, respected in the industry, and had tried to recruit me, quite persistently, on 3 separate occasions over the past few years. Each time, I had politely declined, citing my loyalty to CVRH and the systems I had built there. Things had changed. I wasn't seeking revenge, not really. I just wanted to know, needed to be somewhere my decades of experience were genuinely valued, not dismissed as an inconvenient relic of the past. I picked up my phone, took a deep breath, and dialed the number on the card. Monday morning arrived, and my personal email inbox had effectively exploded overnight. 17 unread messages, all from Damien Cross, each subject line escalating in desperation. Quick question regarding patient database access protocols. Urgent. Cardiovascular imaging system failure, need input. Critical need. Emergency assistance required, system instability. I methodically read through each frantic message, noting the increasing panic bleeding through the corporate jargon. But I responded to none of them. My severance agreement was ironclad, and frankly, my obligation to CVRH had ended the moment Damien showed me the door. Fixing their self-inflicted mess was no longer my responsibility. The final email, time-stamped just an hour ago, finally dropped all pretense of professional decorum. Gregory, name your price. Your consultant rate. Whatever you want. The desperation was palpable. We need you back here. ASAP. Please respond. I was actually halfway through composing a very polite, very professional email declining his offer when my doorbell rang sharply, startling me. Wiping my hands on my jeans, I went to the door. Damien Cross stood on my porch. His expensive tie was askew, his usually immaculate suit looked rumpled, and his eyes were visibly bloodshot, rimmed with exhaustion. He looked like a man running on fumes and fear. "Gregory," he said, attempting to force a smile that looked more like a grimace. Thanks for seeing me on such short notice." His voice was hoarse. "Can we talk? Just for a few minutes?" Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let him in. The awkwardness hung heavy in the air. I offered him coffee, which he accepted gratefully, his hand trembling slightly as he took the mug. I waited in silence for him to begin. "Look, Gregory," he started, clutching the warm mug like a lifeline. We've hit some rather unexpected complications with the system transition. Understatement of the century. Kyle Vance and his Apex team are working literally around the clock, but there appear to be certain aspects of your legacy architecture, certain customizations, that are proving significantly more challenging to navigate than initially anticipated. I nodded slowly, taking a deliberate sip of my own coffee, saying nothing. I documented everything thoroughly before I left. I finally stated, my voice calm and even. Every procedure, every configuration. Yes, of course. The documentation is there, Gregory, absolutely. He conceded quickly, leaning forward slightly in his chair, his voice dropping. But some of these customizations you implemented, these intricate interconnections between disparate systems, they're quite unique. Translation: they couldn't decipher 15 years of highly specialized, context-driven development work in just 5 chaotic days. They were lost in the labyrinth I had built and navigated for so long. Yesterday, Damien continued, his voice strained. The oncology department completely lost access to critical patient treatment protocols for almost 6 hours. He ran a hand through his already messy hair. And the day before that, the entire billing and insurance verification system went down completely. Just stop. We're already facing potentially serious compliance issues, Gregory. Not to mention the potential patient safety concerns this is raising across the board. I took another slow sip of my coffee, letting the silence stretch. Sounds like the modernization initiative is going exceptionally well, Damien, I remarked dryly. His face tightened visibly, a flicker of anger momentarily replacing the desperation in his eyes. Gregory, listen to me. I'm prepared right now to offer you a 6-month contract as a lead implementation consultant. He leaned forward again, his gaze intense. Double your previous salary. Just name your terms. We need you, Gregory. We need you to come back and help us manage this transition properly. The offer was almost insulting in its audacity. After summarily firing me, dismissing my work as outdated, he now expected me to ride back in like a white knight and essentially train his hand-picked, clearly incompetent replacements? To clean up the mess he himself had created? I'm afraid that won't be possible, Damien, I said calmly, meeting his gaze directly. I've already accepted another position elsewhere. Damien's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. His eyes widened slightly in disbelief. Another position? He stammered. Already? Where? Prairie Creek Medical Group, I replied evenly. PCMG? The name registered instantly. His face paled slightly. But they're our direct competitor, the biggest one in the region. Yes, I confirmed quietly. They are. Damien set his mug down on the coffee table with a sharp clink. His demeanor shifted abruptly from pleading to demanding. Gregory, you need to be reasonable about this, he insisted, his voice rising. You built these CVRH systems. You know them inside and out, better than anyone alive. He gestured emphatically. We're talking about patient care here, people's lives. That stung, precisely because it was calculated to. He knew my commitment. For 15 years, I had consistently put patient care and system stability above everything else, often above my own family, my health, my personal life. He was trying to weaponize my own dedication against me. I agree completely, Damien, I said carefully, keeping my voice level despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. Patient care is absolutely paramount. That's precisely why I strongly recommended against rushing headlong into a major system migration without thorough, meticulous transition planning and adequate testing. I believe my detailed concerns regarding the aggressive timeline and potential risks are clearly outlined in several emails included within my official documentation handover. Damien's face flushed a deep red. He knew I was right. He knew I had warned him. The board demanded immediate action. He retorted defensively, his voice tight. Modernization is absolutely necessary for our long-term viability and competitiveness. I start my new role at Prairie Creek next Monday, I interrupted firmly, cutting off his justifications. I sincerely wish you and your Apex team the very best of luck with your modernization efforts, Director Cross. He stood up abruptly, the desperation in his eyes now fully replaced by raw anger and bruised ego. Your severance package, he snapped, pointing a trembling finger at me. It includes a strict non-compete clause. I checked. You can't legally work for a direct competitor like PCMG for at least 6 months. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, a genuine smile touched my lips. It felt good. Actually, Damien, I said softly, it doesn't. I had my lawyer review the entire agreement very carefully before I signed anything. There's a standard non-disclosure agreement, certainly, which I fully intend to honor. But there is absolutely no non-compete clause included. An interesting oversight on your part, perhaps? I added, unable to resist the small jab. I'm perfectly free to work wherever I choose, effective immediately. Damien's expression darkened further, his face contorted with fury and disbelief. This is just about revenge, isn't it, Miller? He spat, reverting to my last name again in his anger. You're doing this deliberately, trying to make us suffer simply because I made the necessary decision to let you go? I walked calmly to the front door and opened it, holding it pointedly. The cool morning air felt refreshing. No, Damien, I said, my voice steady and clear. This is about finding an organization that actually values 15 years of dedicated expertise and proven results, instead of arrogantly dismissing it all as outdated and inefficient. Good luck with your modernization, Director Cross. After he stormed off my porch, slamming his car door with unnecessary force, I closed my own door and walked back into the living room. I sat down heavily in my armchair and finished my now lukewarm coffee. Surprisingly, I didn't feel triumphant or particularly vindictive. Just tired, profoundly weary, and tinged with a lingering sadness for the hospital I had served for so long. My phone buzzed on the table beside me. A text message from Dr. Marcus Cole. Admin is in full panic mode here. Hearing 3 major departments are now significantly impacted by system failures. Board has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. I read the message, but didn't reply. I did, however, save it not as some kind of trophy of their failure, but as a stark, necessary reminder of what inevitably happens when invaluable experience is carelessly treated as obsolete and expendable. By Thursday afternoon, the story had inevitably broken containment and hit the local news cycle. Major system failures plague Cedar Valley Regional Hospital. Patient care potentially affected. Read the headline on the Cedar Rapids Gazette website. Later that evening, I watched from the detached perspective of my living room couch as a local TV news reporter stood bundled against the chill outside the main entrance of CVRH, the very entrance I had walked through thousands of times over the past 15 years. Sources inside Cedar Valley Regional Hospital have confirmed to us that multiple critical departments have experienced significant technology failures this week, following a recent, controversial change in IT leadership, the reporter stated gravely into the camera. We're told the hospital administration has been forced to implement emergency paper-based charting protocols in several areas while outside experts work around the clock to restore access to critical patient information systems. My phone rang, interrupting the broadcast. The caller ID showed Victoria Hayes, the CIO from Prairie Creek Medical Group. Gregory, just seeing the news reports about the situation over at CVRH, she said, her voice professional, but tinged with curiosity. Everything all right with you? I'm fine, Victoria, I replied, keeping my tone even. Just finalizing things here. Looking forward to starting at PCMG on Monday. About that, Victoria paused for a beat. I just received a very interesting, rather unexpected phone call a little while ago. It was from someone on the CVRH board of directors, a Dr. Beatrice Chen. The name clicked instantly. Dr. Chen, head of neurosurgery, a highly respected physician and one of the few board members I knew who possessed a genuine understanding of and appreciation for what my IT team actually did behind the scenes. She served on the hospital's technology committee. Yes, I know Dr. Chen, I confirmed. What did she want? Primarily, she wanted to verify that you had indeed formally accepted our offer here at PCMG, Victoria explained. And then she proceeded to tell me some rather interesting things about the context surrounding the current situation at CVRA. I sat up straighter on the couch, my attention fully captured. Interesting things? What kind of things? Apparently, Victoria continued, her voice dropping slightly. Director Damien Cross didn't just decide to replace you on a whim based purely on modernization needs. It seems he's been working closely behind the scenes with Apex Integrated Systems for several months now, long before the efficiency audit even began. Apex Integrated Systems. The name hit me like a physical blow. Apex wasn't just another IT consultancy. They had a reputation in the healthcare tech industry, a predatory one. They were known for aggressively taking over hospital IT operations, often locking clients into expensive, long-term contracts, and then systematically raising prices exponentially once the hospital systems became wholly dependent on their proprietary platforms. Damien apparently brought in Kyle Vance and the Apex consultants as part of a much larger, pre-negotiated deal, Victoria elaborated. Apex offered significant, almost unbelievable, upfront cost savings to the CVRH board if the hospital committed to converting entirely to their integrated platform within an accelerated time frame. And, conveniently for him, Damien Cross stood to receive a substantial personal performance bonus tied directly to achieving those specific cost reduction targets. The disparate pieces suddenly clicked into place with sickening clarity. My abrupt firing wasn't truly about modernization or efficiency at all. It was about deliberately clearing the path, removing the primary obstacle to facilitate a lucrative corporate takeover of CVRH's entire IT infrastructure by Apex AS, enriching Damien in the process. The CVRH board, or at least most of them, didn't fully grasp the significant technical implications or the long-term risks involved, Victoria added, confirming my suspicions. They apparently trusted Damien's assessment, backed by Apex's slick presentations, that the transition would be relatively seamless and yield major savings. I thought about the specialized, often customized systems I had painstakingly built and maintained over 15 years, systems meticulously designed to prioritize reliable patient care and clinician workflows above all else, not corporate profit margins or streamlining billing processes for maximum revenue capture. Systems built to serve the dedicated doctors and nurses on the front lines. How bad is the situation over there, really, Victoria? I asked quietly, dreading the answer. Victoria paused, and I could almost hear her weighing her words. Dr. Chen was quite candid, Gregory, she said somberly. She mentioned they've had to start diverting certain emergency ambulance cases to other regional hospitals, including ours. Critical care units are reportedly operating on manual backup protocols for vital sign monitoring and medication dispensing. And the State Compliance Office has apparently already launched an official investigation due to multiple formal complaints filed by concerned staff. I closed my eyes tightly, a wave of nausea washing over me. This wasn't what I had wanted. Not ever. I never wanted patients to suffer or be put at risk due to political maneuvering and corporate greed. There's more, Victoria said, her voice hardening slightly. Dr. Chen also mentioned that before Damien Cross formally presented the full Apex proposal to the board, he had managed to get all the clinical department heads to sign off on a comprehensive technology assessment document. An assessment allegedly prepared by Apex consultants under his direct supervision, which claimed that your existing systems, the ones you managed, were fundamentally obsolete demonstrably non-compliant with current regulations, and posed a high risk of imminent failure. That's an absolute lie, I exclaimed, the carefully controlled dam of my composure finally breaking, raw anger surging through me. That's demonstrably false. We consistently passed every single state and federal compliance audit. We maintained 99.98% verified system uptime just last year. Dr. Chen knows that. Yes, Victoria agreed quietly. It seems Dr. Chen, and perhaps others on the board, are now beginning to realize they were significantly misled, possibly deliberately. After ending the call with Victoria, my mind reeling, I immediately opened my laptop. Waiting in my inbox was an email from Dr. Beatrice Chen herself, sent just an hour earlier. The subject line read simply, "A conversation." "Gregory," the email began, direct and to the point. "I feel I owe you a profound apology. The CVRH board approved Director Cross's IT restructuring proposal, including your termination, based on what now appears to be demonstrably incomplete and highly misleading information provided by both him and Apex Integrated Systems. We have since learned, through independent verification and the recent catastrophic failures, that the supposedly outdated systems you meticulously maintained were, in fact, consistently exceeding all relevant industry benchmarks for reliability, security, and uptime. It seems clear now that Damian Cross and Apex has presented the board with deliberately false comparisons and manipulated performance metrics specifically designed to justify their predetermined agenda. The operational situation here has now grown serious enough, impacting patient safety and regulatory compliance, that we have convened an emergency board meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Gregory, I would like to formally invite you to attend this meeting and share your professional perspective on the current state of our systems and the feasibility of the Apex transition. There is absolutely no obligation on your part, of course, but many of us on the board would greatly appreciate the opportunity to hear directly from you. Regardless of your decision, the email concluded, I want you to know that many of us now fully understand the profound disservice that was done not only to you personally, but more importantly, to our hospital and the patients we serve. Sincerely, Beatrice Chen, MD. I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of her words, the stark truth of the situation, settle around me in the quiet room. This wasn't just about the callous firing of a loyal, long-serving employee anymore. This was about the deliberate, calculated dismantling of a complex, functioning, critical system, all for the sake of corporate profit and personal ambition. I arrived at the CVRH hospital boardroom Friday morning at exactly 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes early. It was the same ingrained habit of punctuality I had maintained for every single meeting during my 15 years of employment here. Force of habit, I suppose. Several board members were already present, milling around the large polished table, speaking in low, concerned tones. Doar Chen was among them. She spotted me immediately and approached, extending her hand with a firm grip and offering a grateful, albeit weary, nod. "Thank you for coming, Gregory," she said quietly, her expression serious. "Given the circumstances, I honestly wasn't sure if you would." "Neither was I, Doctor," I admitted honestly, feeling a strange mix of trepidation and resolve. The room filled quickly over the next 15 minutes. Familiar faces appeared. Department heads I'd collaborated with for years, administrators I'd supported through countless system upgrades, doctors whose life-saving work depended on the systems I managed. Damian Cross arrived last, just moments before 9 a.m. He stopped short just inside the doorway when he saw me already seated at the main table, his eyes widening slightly in surprise, then narrowing with barely concealed hostility. The Apex consultant, Kyle Vance, trailed nervously behind him, looking considerably less confident and polished than he had on the day they had so casually informed me of my termination. Doar Chen formally called the emergency meeting to order precisely at 9. "We are convened here today," she began, her voice clear and steady, commanding the room's attention, to address the ongoing critical system failures that are severely impacting hospital operations and patient care, and consequently, to urgently reassess our proposed relationship with Apex Integrated Systems. She paused, then turned her gaze directly towards me. Mr. Gregory Miller, she announced formally, who led our IT infrastructure for 15 years, has graciously agreed to provide the board with his professional assessment of the current situation. All eyes in the room swiveled towards me. The weight of their collective gaze felt heavy. For 15 years, I had worked diligently, often invisibly, behind the scenes, solving complex technical problems, ensuring the hospital's digital lifelines remained stable and secure, rarely seeking or receiving recognition. Now, suddenly, I was thrust onto center stage, the spotlight unexpectedly finding me. I took a steadying breath. The IT systems currently operating at Cedar Valley Regional Hospital, I began, my voice even and measured, were not built overnight. They were developed, integrated, and refined over the course of 15 years to meet the unique and evolving needs of this specific institution and its dedicated medical staff. Every customization, every interface, every workaround was meticulously created not for convenience, but to solve a real, documented problem faced by our clinicians in delivering patient care. These were not, as has been suggested, outdated or obsolete systems. They were highly specialized, finely tuned tools designed for a specific, critical purpose. I opened my laptop and connected it smoothly to the room's large overhead projector. On the screen appeared the first slide, a high-level overview of the meticulously maintained system documentation I had left behind, a clear evidence of hundreds of pages detailing every critical aspect of the hospital's digital infrastructure. Everything required to properly maintain and operate these systems is contained within this documentation, I stated clearly, gesturing towards the screen. Complete technical specifications, detailed configuration logs, comprehensive contingency procedures, robust security protocols, it's all there, readily accessible on the secure server. I paused for emphasis. The fundamental problem CBRH is currently facing is not a lack of documentation. The problem, I continued, my gaze sweeping across the concerned faces around the table, is that Apex Integrated Systems standardized, off-the-shelf platform is demonstrably incompatible with the deeply embedded, specialized systems and unique workflows that this hospital relies upon every single day to function safely and effectively. Damian Cross interrupted abruptly, his voice sharp with defensiveness. Those alleged compatibility issues are merely temporary integration challenges, he insisted, pushing himself forward in his seat. Apex has successfully implemented their state-of-the-art solutions in dozens of hospitals across the country. This is standard procedure. I clicked to my second slide without acknowledging his outburst. It displayed a detailed comparative analysis I had prepared overnight, pulling data from publicly available industry reports and Apex's own marketing materials. These are the hospitals where Apex has successfully deployed their platform within the last 5 years, I explained calmly. Take a close look. Do you notice a common pattern? Dr. Marcus Cole, seated near the end of the table, leaned forward, studying the list intently. They appear to be almost exclusively new hospital constructions or facilities that underwent complete, ground-up rebuilds, he observed thoughtfully. Exactly, Dr. Cole, I confirmed, nodding towards him. Apex's platform works reasonably well when implemented in brand-new facilities, built from the ground up specifically around their proprietary architecture. However, I continued, turning my gaze directly towards Damien and Kyle. Retrofitting their rigid, standardized system onto established, complex hospital environments like CVRH, with decades of accumulated legacy requirements, unique departmental workflows, and specialized equipment integrations, that is precisely where Apex consistently struggles, often with disastrous consequences. I let that sink in for a moment before delivering the final point. A fact which Apex Integrated Systems undoubtedly knew before they ever submitted their initial proposal to this board. Their own published technical specifications, which I have highlighted here on the next slide, explicitly detailed the known incompatibilities with critical systems currently in use here at CVRH, including our primary pharmacy management system and the interface with the radiology department's imaging archive. A ripple of murmurs went through the assembled board members. Glances were exchanged, some questioning, some angry. Dr. Chen turned slowly to face Damien, her expression stern. "Director Cross," she asked, her voice dangerously quiet, "were you personally aware of these specific, documented incompatibilities when you recommended the Apex platform and this aggressive transition plan to the board?" Damien's carefully constructed confidence visibly faltered. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, avoiding Dr. Chen's direct gaze. The initial assessment provided by Apex, he stammered, indicated that any potential transition challenges would be minimal and easily managed by their expert team. "And what about the assessment you personally oversaw and presented to this board, Director Cross?" I interjected firmly, clicking to display a copy of an internal email I had received from a trusted former colleague just the night before. "The same assessment," I continued, reading from the email projected on the screen, "where you explicitly directed key CVRH staff members to emphasize any perceived system vulnerabilities, however minor, and simultaneously minimize reporting on positive stability metrics and successful uptime records." A stunned, heavy silence fell over the boardroom. You could have heard a pin drop. I hadn't come here seeking revenge, not truly. But I had absolutely come seeking the truth and demanding accountability. "The undeniable fact is," I continued, pressing my advantage, my voice resonating with conviction, "Cedar Valley Regional Hospital, as it currently operates, cannot function effectively or safely on Apex integrated systems platform without sacrificing the specialized clinical workflows and critical system integrations that make this hospital not just functional, but exceptional in the quality of care it provides. Not without years of painstaking, careful, collaborative transition planning, the very kind of planning I repeatedly advocated for, and which was summarily dismissed." Dr. Chen looked around the table at her visibly disturbed colleagues. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said gravely, "I believe we have heard enough this morning to make a fully informed and frankly overdue decision regarding the Apex proposal." Damien Cross shot to his feet abruptly, his face flushed with anger and desperation. "You can't seriously be considering abandoning crucial modernization efforts based solely on the biased opinions of a disgruntled former employee with an obvious axe to grind," he exclaimed, his voice trembling slightly. Before anyone else could respond, Dr. Marcus Cole spoke up, his voice quiet, but carrying immense weight in the tense room. "We have had to divert 67 emergency ambulance cases to other facilities in just the past week, Director Cross," he stated flatly, his eyes fixed on Damien. "3 complex surgical procedures were significantly delayed due to system unavailability, and documented medicine administration errors in the ICU have increased by 12% since the Apex team began their transition." Dr. Cole leaned forward slightly. "Those are not opinions, Director Cross," he said pointedly, mistakenly using the original character's name in his intensity, but the message was clear. "Those are verifiable facts impacting patient safety right now." The board voted just 20 minutes later after a brief, somber discussion. The decision was unanimous. The contract negotiations with Apex Integrated Systems would be terminated immediately, effective now. An emergency system restoration plan, utilizing the existing documented backups and protocols, would be implemented without delay, with the goal of returning CVRH to its previous stable operating state as quickly and safely as possible. As I was quietly packing up my laptop, feeling a profound sense of weary relief, Dr. Chen approached me again. "The board has another proposition for you, Gregory," she said softly, her expression hopeful, but uncertain. "If you're willing to hear it." My gaze flickered momentarily towards Damien Cross, who was standing defeated and isolated near the door, Kyle Vance having already slipped out unnoticed. "I'm listening, Dr. Chen," I said, turning back to her. "I'm listening." 3 weeks later, I walked through the main entrance of Cedar Valley Regional Hospital once again, the familiar automatic doors sliding open before me. This time, however, I was wearing a brand new ID badge clipped securely to my shirt pocket. It read, Gregory Miller, Chief Technology Officer. The turnaround hadn't been easy. It had been a grueling, exhausting 3 weeks. The Apex's team, before their hasty departure, had made significant, often reckless, changes to core system configurations, some of which had unfortunately corrupted key databases, requiring painstaking restoration efforts. My newly formed team, a carefully chosen mix of trusted former colleagues who had eagerly returned, supplemented by fresh, talented engineers hungry to learn, had worked virtually around the clock. We focused tirelessly on restoring critical systems, meticulously rebuilding damaged interfaces, and painstakingly recovering compromised data, prioritizing patient-facing functions first. Damian Cross was gone, of course. The official hospital announcement stated he was pursuing other opportunities, a standard corporate euphemism for forced resignation. I hadn't specifically asked for his removal as a condition of my return, but I certainly wasn't sorry to see him go. His leadership had nearly crippled the institution. I made my way towards the stopping by the main nurse's station. Sharon Mills, the charge nurse, looked up from her computer terminal and broke into a wide, genuine smile when she saw me. Gregory, good to see you making the rounds, she greeted warmly. Just wanted to let you know, the systems have been running smooth as silk again since you guys finished the main restoration. Patient record lookups are loading in under 2 seconds flat now, just like they used to. That's excellent news, Sharon, I replied, feeling a surge of satisfaction. Any other lingering issues or glitches I should be aware of down here? She shook her head firmly. Not a single one since you came back, Chief, she said, emphasizing my new title with a wink. Honestly, it's like night and day compared to the chaos we had during, well, you know, the dark times, I finished for her, managing a small smile. As I continued my informal rounds through the hospital corridors, Dr. Marcus Cole fell into step beside me, having just finished scrubbing out from a procedure. Heading up to the quarterly board meeting, Gregory? He asked casually. I nodded. Yes, quarterly technology review and budget proposal. The first one where you'll be sitting at the big table presenting the strategy, instead of standing quietly in the corner waiting to answer technical questions with a slideshow, he noted with a wry grin. Times have certainly changed. We entered the familiar boardroom together. The hospital's senior leadership team was already gathering. Dr. Beatrice Chen, now serving as the interim hospital director following Damian's departure, nodded towards me expectantly from her seat at the head of the table. Mr. Miller, she addressed me formally for the benefit of the board minutes. We're eager to hear your department's report and your proposed technology roadmap. I connected my laptop to the projector without preamble. On the main screen appeared a clean, simple dashboard displaying key system performance metrics, current uptime statistics, average response times, and clear comparison data points from the stable period before the Apex debacle, the chaotic week of failures, and the current restored state. System recovery is 100% complete, I stated clearly and confidently. All critical patient care systems have been fully restored with no verifiable data loss. Furthermore, I continued, we've already implemented several additional safeguards and monitoring protocols to proactively defend against similar disruptions occurring in the future, including enhanced multi-factor authentication across all platforms and next-generation endpoint security. Dr. Chen studied the impressive recovery metrics on the screen, a look of profound relief washing over her features. And what about the ambitious modernization initiatives that former Director Cross was so adamant about pursuing? Another board member inquired. I smoothly transitioned slides to display my proposed 5-year technology roadmap. It wasn't a radical rip and replace overhaul. Instead, it depicted a careful, methodical, phased plan for strategically evolving CVRH's systems, leveraging proven cloud technologies where appropriate for scalability and cost efficiency, while carefully preserving and enhancing the critical, specialized legacy systems that continue to serve the hospital reliably, all without ever compromising patient safety or disrupting essential clinical workflows. Real, sustainable modernization, I explained, addressing the board directly, doesn't mean blindly chasing the latest trends or replacing what demonstrably works just for the sake of change. It means intelligently building upon your proven strengths, integrating new capabilities thoughtfully, and always prioritizing the core mission: outstanding patient care. The board unanimously approved the proposed roadmap and the associated budget request without significant debate. 6 months later, I sat peacefully on my back deck on a warm Iowa evening, savoring a quiet cup of coffee as I watched the vibrant colors of the sunset paint the western sky. My phone buzzed softly on the small table beside me. It was a text message from Victoria Hayes at Prairie Creek Medical Group. Heard through the grapevine that CVRH just received the Regional Excellence Award for Healthcare Technology Innovation and Reliability. Didn't see that coming 6 months ago. Congratulations, Gregory, my almost colleague. I smiled, a genuine, unforced smile, and quickly typed back a reply. Thanks, Victoria. Appreciate the note. And apologies again for the rather abrupt, last-minute career redirection back then. Her reply came back almost instantly. No hard feelings whatsoever, Gregory. You clearly ended up exactly where you needed to be. She was absolutely right. Despite the painful circumstances of my departure and return, I knew deep down that I belonged here at CVRH. Though not in the same invisible, often underappreciated role I had occupied for 15 long years. As the Chief Technology Officer, I now had a respected voice in the critical decisions that directly affected technology's role in patient care. I finally had a permanent seat at the table where I could effectively advocate for and defend the vital systems and the dedicated people who maintain them. CVRH, as an institution, had learned a harsh, costly lesson the hard way. That deep-seated experience and institutional knowledge cannot simply be replaced overnight with flashy buzzwords and unrealistic promises. That unwavering loyalty and proven competence should never be carelessly discounted or dismissed as outdated liabilities. I scrolled idly through the camera roll on my phone, stopping at a photo taken just last week at the hospital's annual staff appreciation dinner. It showed my entire IT team standing together, smiling, a healthy mix of seasoned veterans who had returned with me and bright, eager newcomers we had recently hired, each individual bringing valuable perspectives and skills to the table. In the foreground of the photo, resting on the table, was the gleaming plaque recognizing our department's significant contribution to improving patient care through technological excellence. In the 15 years before my firing, despite countless successful projects and averted crises, I had never once been publicly acknowledged or formally recognized for simply keeping the hospital's complex digital heart beating reliably day in and day out. Now, my expertise was visible, actively sought after, respected, and genuinely valued. My thoughts occasionally drifted to Damien Cross. I wondered, briefly, if he had learned anything at all from the disastrous consequences of his reckless ambition back at CVRH. The last I'd heard, through industry gossip, was that he had landed a senior position at some new healthcare technology startup, one promising revolutionary disruption of traditional hospital administration models. Some lessons, it seems, are significantly harder for certain people to learn than others. My new CVRH badge sat on the table beside my coffee cup. I picked it up, running my thumb thoughtfully across the newly printed title, Chief Technology Officer. No longer just the quiet, unassuming man who kept the lights on and the servers running anymore. Now, I was one of the people entrusted with helping to strategically guide the hospital's technological future, ensuring its continued success and, most importantly, the safety and well-being of its patients. I hadn't truly wanted revenge in the end. What I had truly wanted, and ultimately achieved, was recognition, not for my own ego, but recognition of a fundamental truth, that experience matters profoundly. That some critical things simply cannot be easily replaced, hastily repackaged, or carelessly disrupted without potentially devastating consequences. Sometimes the most innovative and effective approach is simply to respect, understand, and intelligently build upon what already works,